Late, but let's get started, and welcome to the it's October. The October meeting. Pretty drive on the way down today.
Yeah.
The leaves kind of ease the sting of the lake season, the boat season being over for me, and the holidays are coming. So we have a good agenda. I think we can get through things pretty efficiently with your cooperation. The first thing we need to do is approve the minutes from the September 16th meeting. Has everybody had a chance to look at those?
Yes.
Any additions or deletions or corrections? No?
I'll move that we accept the September board meeting minutes.
May I have a second?
I second it.
It's been moved and seconded. We accept the approve the minutes from September 16. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Minutes approved. The treasurer's report, I've asked Adam to handle that tonight in Lance's absence. Lance has a meeting up in Indianapolis, so could not be with us, but most of it is just kind of housekeeping, things that we've talked about in previous budget meetings. So,
all right, I'm just going to go over his kind of quick update list that he hands out. For income for September, watercraft permits and launch fees were actually almost $12,000 above what we budgeted annually. We budgeted $123,000 for revenue off that. Currently we're at $134,900, and we're still making decent money with all the fishermen back out for crappie season now. Marina and club fees, we budgeted $8,000, we've made $11,900. Sublease fees, we've collected $27,445. Property taxes, the 2015 budget is $250,000. So far we've received $145,800, and that was one installment from Monroe and Brown County, and there should be another second installment coming in by the end of the year. Dredging riprap income, we overpassed it by $7,500, a little over. We've earned $17,000 off dredging riprap income. That's because we had pretty good weather, and we really knocked out a lot of the private dredging jobs pretty quick. There's a lot of people that wanted some done, and some were pretty extensive on the shoreline. So we made a lot more revenue. We budgeted $10,000 for that, so we almost doubled that. Other notes, our end-of-year budget goal was $655,200 for expenses. $200,000 of that was for the loan, which we won't have. Then $49,000 is for the loan repayment, which we're also not having since we don't have the loan. Amount earned to date, we've had $379,315 in revenue. Expenses, here's a year-end budget estimate of $199,678. So far, year to date, we spent $144,237, with about 72.2% of the budget spent. It should be going down quite a bit. It's almost too shallow out there to dig right now, even though we do have dredging hours. I'm not sure we can move that barge around very much. And then the staff that we have for the park has really only been working on weekends about 2 days a week. So there's not much money going there. Maintenance and facility, we went over on maintenance and facility by $7,500, and that was for the bathhouse renovations into the office, the upgrades that we did to both. We did not have those budgeted for. Insurance, we're currently $1,173 below budget. Weed treatment and water testing, we're at $20,900 below budget. So that was a very good year for weed treatment. Debt service, there's no loans taken out, so we do not have any debt service. And that was his highlights, and then he has a little handout here with some numbers. Board members have those. I don't know if there's any questions from the board. If not, we can go to the report of claims, the allowance of vouchers. Has everybody had a chance to review the allowance of vouchers?
Yes.
I guess I'll
Right there, yeah.
need to seek a motion then to approve the report of claims.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
It's been moved and seconded that we accept the September vouchers. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
May I ask a question of the report?
Yes.
Do we keep current with sublease fees? Are there delinquencies in that account?
I'll have to look. I don't believe there are this year. we're pretty on it. We call people all the time if they are delinquent, so.
I just wondered.
Here's the, okay. All right, next we have the adoption of 2016 annual budget and the statement of salaries and wages. We've gone over this the past 2 months at the board meetings. Are there any questions about this? If not, we've reviewed it, and I'll just go ahead and seek a motion to approve the annual budget and statement of salaries and wages.
I move.
I'll second it.
It's been moved and seconded that we pass Resolution 10506, adoption of the 2016 annual budget and 2016 statement of salaries and wages. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Now, we do have in there the job description for the operations supervisor, which is what James' job will be reclassified as. I don't know if anybody's had a chance to review it or has any questions regarding any of the aspects of it. If not, then we can move forward.
I do have one question on, there's the sheet of paper in there that we need to add him to if this passes, when it passes, where you've got your salary and then not his. It's back in the packet somewhere. I just noticed that we might have we have to fill that in yet. But I assume since the resolution had not been passed, we just hadn't added that in. I'll show you that for
Yeah,
the meeting.
all right.
Okay. All right, so we need a motion then. A motion to approve resolution 10-1507. Oh, I'm sorry, that's not right. That's the fees. I skipped ahead of myself. We don't need a motion then for the operations guy? We're done with that?
No, it's just a discussion.
Okay, sorry. D. I skipped.
All right, so then we have the annual fees and charges. The big changes on fees and charges where we doubled the cost of bass tournaments or fishing tournaments from $25 to $50. We get packed with tournaments. I don't think I'll have any problem filling it up. And it's $25 more. Sometimes they bring upwards of 20 to 30 boats. So I think it'll be a nice little chunk of revenue, and I don't think there'll be any pushback from the fishermen. We've talked to some of the clubs coming in. They said there'd be no problem to do that, and I think it's kind of more in line with what some of the other lakes around the state do too. We are talking about we're going to increase the park gate fees to $7 per vehicle from $5. This will help bring in some more money for infrastructure. And also we're going to be implementing credit cards at the beginning of the year, so we'll have the credit card machine, so that $7 will help offset some of the cost for the credit cards, just as a little convenience factor. We are looking into adding an online purchasing option for boat passes. We could fill it out online, pay online, and we can just mail those out. So we'll be working on that over the winter, trying to get it up on the website. Looking at the feasibility of doing online, but we will have the credit cards at the office and in the gatehouse, so I think a lot of people will be happy about that.
Are you getting the chip readers? Or just
Yes,
the
they're going to be required, the chip readers.
That's
so
why I
when we
want to make
talked
sure
to-
you knew that
yeah.
they were required.
Yeah, when I talked to the company, this is actually who the People's State Bank recommended, who we're going through. They said it'll all be the chip readers, just to kind of be ahead of the curve once they require it.
James, sign this as well as the other copy.
Yeah, there's gonna be 3
As far as that, there's not a whole lot of changes in the fees. Boat passes are remaining the same, so
So 2 from each board member.
unless there's any more discussion on fees and charges for resolution 10-1507, I'll go ahead and seek a motion to approve that.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
It's been moved and seconded that we accept the 2016 fees and charges as per discussion. Resolution 10-1507. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Carries. Okay.
Moving on to resolution 10-15-8, setting dates for our regularly scheduled board meetings. Has everybody had a chance to look over that? Are there any questions or concerns with the dates? I know One of them was very close to a holiday. November or December, James?
I think it was maybe November, being close to Thanksgiving.
November
Yeah, I
16th.
think it was the same. Well,
Oh, goodness.
Adam, would it be possible, can we postpone this vote on the 2016 dates? Or does it need to be done tonight?
No, we could do that.
yeah, we did in November.
I suggest that you take a look at prior meetings
Vote on the tax
and
resolution.
see if we can clump some housekeeping duties together and perhaps shave one or two meetings off of the annual budget. Particularly because there's the possibility of Mary Jane Brown wanting to be on the board, and winter meetings are difficult for her.
We did try and do that. We took away that November meeting.
Yeah, and that didn't work.
Well, we brought it back on just because December and January were just kind of loaded with contracts, and then when we're trying to get something done, you know, if we were trying to approve the barge contract tonight, you know, we have to wait till December, or, so I don't know.
I don't know either.
We can look at it and revisit it and bring it back
Okay.
to November.
I think we should always meet at least once a month.
Yeah, I can-
I'm new, but it seems like there's a lot of things to do. You can't get
Yeah.
as much done if we don't meet.
Mhm.
Do you want to ponder it for a month, bring it back in November,
That's
and
all.
talk about it again?
I also
I like
think
that idea. We should all probably.
it'd be useful too for the meeting dates to be assigned functions, or functions assigned to those meeting dates, and that published well in advance. For instance, the vote on the drawdown, that could be on an annual list of things.
All right, yeah, we can do that.
Thanks.
Absolutely.
There's no February date in there, is that,
No, that's the annual meeting.
oh, so you don't consider that
It's
okay.
listed
It's at the
below.
bottom.
Oh, right down there.
And what's
Yeah,
the
we're-
point to the annual meeting being at the first of the month?
So we can hit an ice storm if it comes.
Yeah, really.
I think it was supposed to be for farmers being early in the month, but I think, I don't know
I
why
know
we.
it has to be in February, but why it breaks the third Wednesday rule, I don't know.
I feel like I heard why, but I don't know.
Okay.
There's no real good reason. I mean, we could move it to, yeah.
Not positive why it is.
Does that have anything to do with having to make the newspaper by a certain date or something? Depends on the post-
Probably not.
No.
I think it's in the Indiana Conservation Act. I think that's why we do it.
Okay, so we'll delay that till
Copy that
November.
in,
There's another reason I'm looking at.
When we postpone this, we'll look at that too, to see if there is historical reason or it's something that we have to do. So I guess we'll just table this till the November
No,
meeting.
these are-
Okay,
All right.
that brings us to Adam. It's your turn.
First up, we have the small barge update and discussion. I've been talking with the attorney, and since we've tried the bidding process and it hasn't worked for the excavator and for the barge, they said that we can split up the purchase of the excavator and the barge. And if things are under $150,000 total cost, we can just receive 3 quotes and select from the quotes and go that way instead of going through the full bidding process. The quotes that we came back came in well under $150. So we've been soliciting quotes. I went ahead and got quotes. I have 3 quotes from barge building companies, and then 3 quotes from contractors for dredging. On that way, we can just take a look at everything, see what the costs are, and have a discussion what we want to do. We actually have Heartland Dredging here, who presented one of the quotes, and who actually was mentioned in Marty's email. So I'd like to go ahead and invite them up to talk about the hydraulic dredging process and if there's any questions or answers.
I'm Jeff Brooks with Heartland Dredging. This is Mark Zielinski. He's our chief estimator and my go-to guy. We've actually just been out to the Chitwood channels to look at them. I've got some pictures. Those pictures are more than 1,000 words. There's our dredge. I can pass these around. Pull it with a 3/4 ton pickup. Picture an 18-foot pontoon boat with a 6-foot wide 2-stage snowblower head on front. That'll go 15 feet deep. can just control the height of it. That particular unit right there, 1,200 feet, we can add booster pumps, and once we add booster pumps, we haven't found a limit yet.
We've gone as far as a mile.
We did 2 miles. You weren't here then.
Oh, okay.
We actually did, we did almost 2 miles up at Alexandria for Bill Gaither, the gospel music producer and singer. That's the size of the dredge. So when we're just out looking at the channels, we're talking about the 20-foot wide cuts in each one of the channels out there. We probed the material. The material's not going to be a problem to move any of it. The one channel in the middle, it's not in the middle, it's the last one, isn't it? Is that right?
Walker Lane.
Walker Lane. It's about the last 50 feet of it. It's got a lot of heavy vegetation. Up to that point, what's going to happen is a dredge would go in, we'd pull the material out, and then the top would just cave in, and we'd go back in and pull some more material. But once you get within that last 50 feet, there's actually some pretty large trees, or at least some tree stumps, a lot of heavy roots and things like that. That's going to slow the dredging down a lot, so that's where there's actually room to come in with an excavator at the other end and move that material. We're looking at that as well. Mark prepared the quote so he can answer questions about the quotes and the quantities. We're just doing this, just a rough quote, because we're just going off the measurements and the depths that you got, that Adam and James gave us. So just to give you all an idea of where we'd be at to do those channels over in that area.
And has the board had a chance to review the Heartland dredging quote? Came back for the channels. They have labeled as A, B, and C, which would be Walker Lane, the Channel Road Lane, and then the east-west channel that heads down towards the Ison House. Came back at $147,650. And one of the things was, how much volume or how much area do you need for the site for bags, for the bag system?
I believe in that for those first 3 channels, we were at about 500 lineal feet of bag. And like I told you, that's about 30 feet wide. So we would, we could configure that however we want, but it's essentially 500 feet long, 30 feet wide. We laid 5 bags next to each other. What's that? 100 by 150.
100 by 150. Yeah. And then I have been talking with IDEM and Brown County, and if we disturb less than an acre, we don't have to go through a permitting process for a disposal site. I just kind of wanted to go ahead and do my due diligence and check on that early on when we were getting quotes for the different companies. So for under an acre, we wouldn't have to go through the permitting process unless if we had a retention pond, if we flow the water back into the lake and have to treat it, then we would have to go through a 401 permit, which is a nationwide dredging permit. That could take a couple months to do, but that's only if we release the water back into the lake versus doing a sediment pond. I don't know if there's ever been anybody in here with a hydraulic company before. I know we've had concerns about debris. What about, how does that do with, like, say, small sticks and debris in the
2
channels?
inches what it'll pass, correct, Mark?
2 to 3, I think.
Just picture the auger head on the front. It's not digging material, it's stirring it. Sticks, things like that, it's going to break them up. We're doing the canal through Indianapolis. It won't pass a pistol. It won't pass a cigarette machine or a car radiator. Anything smaller than that seems to go through pretty well. The bags, there's actually a sample of the bags. I know Adam mentioned those. That is actually cut right out of one of Mark's bags. He's not going to like it when he goes to use it next time. But I had to get samples somewhere. That's actually the material we pump through, or we pump into.
It's
The
like
water comes out clear. And when I say clear, we're hitting 12 parts per billion clarity, turbidity when we're running the bags. So as far as the material going through, the 2 to 3 inch material, vegetation is going to chew the vegetation up. The only vegetation we don't like is the above surface cattail, because that wraps around the head. We got to clean it out. So those channels don't have any of that in there, so it's not going to be an issue anymore.
Well, and if we do get into something, if you get a piece of riprap or something jammed in there, they'll raise it up, and I mean, occasionally they have to clean it. That's factored in to figure a certain percentage of the time that it's actually running. So we run into odds and ends. I think we'll find some things that nobody expected down there.
Is there a permanent type bag that you can use if you're building future areas to get rid of sediment? Where they pump into the bags and leave the bags forever?
The bags aren't gonna stay forever, they're biodegradable. 5 or 6 years, you'll start seeing the seams rip. Some jobs we do, we actually just take the topsoil off, fill the bags up, when they dry, we just bury them, and they just decay. They can be planted. You'll see if we're to have, any place we have bags set now, we have plants. They're not coming from inside out, they're coming from the outside, and they will find their way through the bags, and those roots will penetrate and set them. It's very organic material. So actually leave the bags out. And we do have areas, we have had areas where we'll pump into the bag. As the bag dewaters, when it's filling up, it's 6 feet tall. When it's full, it might be 6 feet tall or close to it. But as it continues to dewater, the material breaks down. It'll get down to 3.5 foot, maybe 4 foot height. So now we've got room for more material. So we may go back and pump some more in there later, 3 or 4 months down the road, if the bags just stay in place. So we can keep putting material in the bags until they just won't take it anymore.
We have that way, I know on the Crooked Stick Golf Course, we notched out the side of the hill, put the bag in there, and then after it dewatered, we cut the top of it off, graded it all out, and they just reseeded it. Didn't have to move it or anything, so that's an option, depending on where exactly you put it. As long as a mound or, raising the elevation of that area is not an issue, you can leave it.
Are the cubic yard estimates based on a particular depth of water at normal pool?
Yeah, there, and I can provide, I should put some detail on there. I think the channel that's out of the ground, we were configured about 6 feet. I think the one next to it was 3.5 and 3 feet in the other ones. And we just figured 20 feet wide. Kind of thing that if we were to do it, we would want to go out there first and verify everything and make sure everybody agrees on what the quantity is to be removed. But from looking at it, it looks pretty reasonable.
We just went off Adam and James' measurements that they've already gone out there and probed it and checked it. And we went out there before we come over here, and that one channel, I was 6.5 feet in some spots up towards once you start getting towards that main east-west channel.
And what do you think it would take for time-wise to complete the project from start to finish?
Let me actually check, verify.
How far out is your schedule, Tim?
We've actually come into, I won't say dead time, but we've come into some time at the end of this year where we've got some jobs caught up quicker. We've got them finished quicker than what we had planned. It could actually, we're thinking if he says we can get it done and tell me how long it's going to take.
About a month. Maybe 5 weeks, worst case. That's with a smaller machine.
I'm not sure which one of you guys I talked to last week. Marty Mann. Hi, how are you? Thanks for talking. I didn't know these guys would work so fast. What was the pump rate you gave me? Was it 1,000 GPM?
1,100 is the...
Okay.
Is
And about 20% solids?
Yeah, 20 to 25%.
Okay, so I just wanted to let everybody know, I did a quick calculation, and it looks like in an hour we would pump about 59 cubic yards. That's based on 1,000 gallons per minute, 60 minutes an hour, about 7.48 gallons per cubic foot, 27 cubic feet in a yard times 20%. So that's probably better than what we're doing now. And so that leads to my question is there a possibility, or have you ever done a thing where you do a contract and then do like a lease purchase or something where we try it and then we buy it type of thing, where or is it just totally a separate deal?
We're in it to do the dredging, but obviously if we come out and do it and you see it, you like it, you know.
But you sell the equipment as well, right? I guess
Yes, we can sell you the equipment as well if you need to.
The reason I mention that is because when we first did the dredging project, the big bugaboo on hydraulic dredging was the sediment disposal. You know, settling ponds are hard to find around these hills. And with these bags, particularly if we had a disposal site, we spent $40,000 building the road at Possum Trot. $40,000 just to build that road. So there's a lot of cost preparing a disposal site. It seems like with this system, whether we did it at Little Africa or did it somewhere else, once we cut the trees down, there's not a lot of site preparation.
Right. Yeah, you got a good
And so, you know, I'm interested in this not only for Chitwood, but also looking at it. I don't think we'll ever get away from the big barge because of the places on the lake that this would not be cost effective. But for the upper end of the lake, where 90% of the sediment is, at 1,200 feet, you know, and I imagine maybe 1,500, we could do most of the east end without the need for a booster. And this might be something that, in a long-term strategy, might be something that might be looked at as a permanent investment. Because when you guys were giving me the cost of actually purchasing the equipment, it was in the same ballpark of what we're talking about for the small barge operation, 250,000 range. And so, you know, if we're getting 59 yards an hour, and I know now we're getting maximum per day of about, what, 200 cubic yards, 300 cubic yards a day?
3, 4 on a great day.
Yeah, so, you know, we could be 50% more yardage with hydraulic dredging, and site preparation costs could be substantially smaller, particularly if we wind up going with a disposal site that's not easily accessible by truck, like in the middle of the lake between the two east or south and north ends, where there's a huge available spot. So, you know, I just want to throw that out there. Hadn't worked so much on the original purchase of the equipment, we don't think this would ever do the whole lake, but for the east end, this might be something to look at as maybe a permanent investment, particularly if we tried it for a year under a contract, which is what we did for our big barge. We spent 3 years, you know, letting the contractor show us that it worked, and then turned around and bought the equipment. So I just wanted to kind of throw that out there, that the numbers look real promising.
The one thing about that, though, is your bags aren't reusable. So, you know, where with your mechanical, you know, you don't have that cost, but then you don't have trucking and
Are the bags degradable?
Yes.
Are the bags degradable?
Yes.
How long?
About 5 years.
Okay.
And you can always cut the top bag once you stack them up as high as you want them, and you know, it decants the water. You can always tear away the top bag and plant, and it makes for a good turf reinforcement. I mean, the roots will go right down through these bags.
Yeah.
And I sent out an email today showing that you could do like stack them like a pyramid if you were really careful, probably 4 or 5 bags high, and then, you know, do 2 pyramids and then do an inverted pyramid to maximize your footprint for your disposal site. But I was pretty enthused about the numbers in terms of capacity on a per day basis. That looks pretty good.
Bob?
Thank you. I apologize to the board for my tardiness. How big is this cutter head at the back of this picture I'm looking?
6 foot wide.
6 foot wide. And I was late for the discussion, but are we talking about hydraulically dredging the channels in Chitwood and through pipe take it to Little Africa? Is that what we're talking about?
Yes, sir.
Does that require a booster pump? You're probably talking 1,200, 1,400, 1,500 feet.
It's just over the limit of that machine, the way it is. So we have figured a booster pump.
And what's the cost for the booster pump?
That's all figured into this estimate, right?
Yeah, that's all, that's the booster pump, dredge, pipe, bags, all that.
And how many acres would you have to, we would have to clear out in Little Africa to put these bags and kind of use a...
100 by 150 feet. Under an acre, we don't need a permit for it. We
That's
really
under
did miss
the-
some, we missed
the
some key
rule
points. Yeah,
5.
yeah. Under an acre, we don't have to have a permit. And this only needs 100 by 150 feet area. Well under an acre.
And could we bury the line along the south side of the channel and bury it so no boating traffic could be blocked at all? going down the main channel around Little Africa and Solomon Point.
You typically float the lines, right?
Typically float the
Yeah,
line,
they normally
But
do.
if-
because we're going in and out.
Yeah.
Could you bury a line? I
Could
wouldn't
you
bury
dig
a
a
line,
line?
because if it plugs up, you're gonna have a very upset operator, he's gotta dig it up. While we did the canal
So
in
you kind of
Indianapolis.
float it on the side and buoy it off, right?
Yeah, and that's what we
Cable down.
actually did, we're doing the canal through Indianapolis, we're going down, the hoses, the pipes are right up on the shoreline. All the joggers and bikers, they don't even know they're there.
Is that you doing the canal? I've been wondering about that.
Yes,
Okay,
ma'am.
drive by there all the time. Okay, I've
And
seen it.
seasonality wise, we could probably do this, I mean, almost the winter and incredibly early spring. And
Yeah, I would say
minimal boat
off-season,
traffic,
right.
yeah.
When no one's boating anyway, so.
No.
I'm sure people would be happy to see dredging if it gave up a couple weeks of boating to open up.
I have one question.
Yes, sir.
The price for that picture, 225 you said?
149.
147 for actually the dredging work, I have.
No,
the price.
to buy the machine.
I'd have to go back and put all the numbers together, because you have to figure out how much pipe you need, trailer,
So when he said
he's gonna
225,
be in the ballpark. That's
for
gonna be in the
everything,
ballpark.
pumps, pipe,
No fault, that's not including the booster pump. The dredge itself has a pump on it.
mhm.
It'll pump, like I said, 1,000 to 1,200 feet is about the max you're gonna pump with it. And that also depends on your material. If you got sandier material, you're not gonna pump as far because it's heavier. So that depends on where, how the material's coming into the coves. But for that price, and we've not sat down and put a hard number to the price, it may be a little less than that, it may be a little more. It's gonna depend. The pipe really makes an awful lot of difference. Yes, the dredge is the big expense, but when you start adding all that pipe, if you say, hey, we're gonna wanna go 2,000 feet regular, well, then you need to think about a booster pump. We rent booster pumps all the time. They're pretty expensive to rent. I think we own one.
Do they
So
float?
purchase price, we really don't have a number, right?
Not a hard number. I didn't give it, wasn't prepared to do a hard number. I know Mark and Marty talked about it a little bit. But I can get a hard number for you. That's
Do
easy.
the booster pumps, will they float?
I can float it if you want to float
You
it.
could put them on the water though.
Yeah, they can put on a barge. They can actually, you
You
guys
have a barge, it could go, so you could go, you could put it at the most ideal location, that way it doesn't necessarily have to be too short or too long a line, because you want to keep it on shore, you can put it out in the middle of the lake if you need to.
Who would be operating this if we bought our own?
The same mythical people that
guess our
operate
dredger.
the small barge that we
The mythical
would
people.
buy, yeah.
It's
We don't
probably
have
less
anyone
dangerous than
operating
what
it.
we've got now.
I mean, is our large barge operator capable of running this? That's what I guess my question.
How many people does it take to run an operation?
Yeah.
We usually have three. We have one on the barge, one on the shoreline, a boat to go get the occasional radiator or cigarette machine off the barge that they put, or the dredge they put, to relieve him for lunch or restroom breaks, things like that. And then we have a third guy over at the bag area, and his job, and actually, a lot of residents like that job, because you just go out there and beat on the bag. You get a 2x4, you just hit it hard as you can, you walk on it, you beat on it, because the bags, that material will get a fine silt. The real fine stuff will cover the inside of it. It'll start slowing your production down, and then you take that board or piece of PVC pipe. That sounds really neat when it hit, because it splashes and pings and everything. And then you'll see a little puff of gray, and then the water will just come flowing out. And that's what the bag guy's job is to do.
And that's pretty much nonstop. Well, when they shut down, then he has to go help fix whatever issue might be there. So 3 guys is really all you need.
That's the most I've seen on any of our jobs.
What kind of fuel do you run through in a given 10-hour day? Is it a diesel?
Yes.
We've got a channel or two that actually will have no water. There's wetland growing at the end of the channel. Do you guys need water all the time to do what you're doing?
Yes, sir.
We looked at that, and basically the way we approach those situations is we dig down leading up to it and then essentially undermine it. And if we have to, we can take a pump and pump water and just kind of jet.
You can add
loosen
your
it
own
up.
water
Yeah, just
to
kind of
do it.
stir it up.
Well, we've
Yeah.
got one channel that's probably got 30 feet of wetland right now. It's all ground. but you could still dig that out by adding water to that to make your system work?
I'm not sure what channel is that?
Yeah, the same one where it said they could undercut it and then it would essentially fall in.
We can get all the way
Water will
to,
fill in.
This was discussed prior to
we
you being.
can't get about the
we already
last
did
50 feet. It's just too hard, too many roots, and a little too consolidated.
Well,
Can I ask this question?
Normal pool? Is this a normal pool of water at the lake, or is this while the lake is down?
No, it's up, it's normal, whatever's normal.
How deep can you go?
We can go to 14 feet.
More than we'll ever need.
I have a very naive question. Have you ever had a third party that wants the sediment, that takes it away for some kind of use?
Absolutely.
And how's that work? Is it a company that will then sell it, or are lakes just glad to get rid of it and give it to them, and they come and get it, or how's that?
It is a great day at the office if you can get somebody to take your sediment for nothing.
Yeah.
And any farmer around here is gonna want that topsoil back. They will put it on their fields and they'll spread it out and they'll smile the whole time they're spreading it. It's very organic material. You'll probably want to get a wheelbarrow too, or yourself to put in your gardens, because it will grow some stuff. Yeah, there are some companies around the country who will come in and take the material and purchase it, but the quantity here is not going to be enough to get them to come down and chase that. They're wanting 60, 70,000 yards of material, then they'll come and haul it away.
Good to know.
Then they mix it with
That's the
compost
payment,
and
is
sell it
you
back
get
to
them
them.
to take it for nothing.
Our sediment's already been tested, and you can't use it for livestock or
Crop uptake, right.
crop uptake.
Yeah, it's
Light arsenic.
neutral to everything. The
Light
farmers
arsenic.
didn't want it.
Really?
Yeah, it was tested, it was just like sand, I had some in my house.
Actually, below
It's like
background
sand, and
level.
it doesn't grow anything, and it does not grow anything.
Check, actually.
But you can still make us an offer on it.
Have you guys addressed with Adam if this is a repeat, is that, I just haven't heard. What about the folks, so you dig a channel up the middle, and we've got folks that will want to be able to access that, or are you able to help them with private jobs to connect to the main channel, or have you guys
That's a
already?
good question.
We can work that through y'all. If y'all say, hey, let's go ahead and figure in helping this guy get in, or we can work with the private homeowners. We're actually doing it up in Kokomo. They just took a barge up, or a dredge up today to do that. We're doing a lake up there, and one of the homeowners said, hey, I want 100 feet in front of my house that the lake is not gonna pay for. I want it clean. So since all the mobilization is already there, I think the price went down to $12 or $13 a yard because there's no mobilization.
Two additional points I'd like to throw in. When we're comparing the cost of this compared to using the small barge for Chitwood, it would be fair to include the small barge, the cost of the disposal site, because that's money that we've already spent. So there's the cost of this is enclosed in the proposal. The cost of the small barge, we really need to add in the cost that we've already spent on the disposal site. And the second thing I'd like to say is that one advantage of this, particularly if we're going to use something like Little Africa, which is kind of a multi-use site, you're not talking about heavy equipment, building roads. One of the things we talked about Little Africa was the need to get the dump truck in there. Well, this would be minimal noise and disruption to the site compared to what we had to do at Possum Trot. So those are two things we might want to consider.
At the moment, we would have to contact Bloomington Water because we don't even have permission to leave the sediment that we're currently digging out on the premises, let alone start leaving bags sitting around, building up here and
We
there.
do have permission for Little Africa.
Not to let it stay. We have permission to use it as a dump site, but I don't believe we have permission to leave.
I think you'd have to
leave the
go back
sediment.
with a change of type of use.
Same with the Possum Trot. We don't have permission to let the dirt, the sediment stay. We have to truck it out sooner or later.
At a certain point?
Yes.
I wasn't aware of that. I was in every meeting.
Well, to correct him, and it's the small barge for everyone on the lake, not just Chetwood.
Bob, do you recall the water company saying we needed to move that sediment out of Possum Trot?
No.
But there will be a max, I think is what we're confusing. I mean, the site can only hold so much,
Right.
Right.
and then you're, yes, Bob?
He's the one that said that we don't have
You can
permission
go
to-
back to John and Marty and I years ago. I'm looking at the long-term sustainability of this lake. We determined early on that the East Bay will have to be hydraulically dredged. You can't do it mechanically. And we've got this huge land mass right now that is forming between Little Africa and Point Ottawa, where you can't even see across. We got full-blown trees there. We got 3 and 4 inch trees growing there. Well, the wetlands where you couldn't normally deposit material wetlands, it's only going back 20 feet. We got 5 and 6 foot of elevation back in this huge land mass up there. You put those bags up there and you pipe it in. The distance is going to be short, no booster pumps. This is a great opportunity right now for this board to explore hydraulic dredging for the first time. Keep the big boy. You'll always have room for the big boy. It's paid for, keep it. But building a small barge right now to do 2 or 3 inner channels at Chitwood, and I think Andy had some report getting prepared for that. I may have been late to miss it, about all the sites that were the little barge could do. I'll guarantee you most of those sites the big barge could do, because they're all straight in shots, and there's very little areas where that little barge could be used moving forward except for Chitwood. Board, I know no decision is going to be made tonight, but please look at this whole hydraulic dredging initiative. And the new thing, which I never thought about, wasn't existed back in my day when John and Marty on these bags. Yeah. These bags are the way to go.
Thank you. Thanks, Gail. We're taking another
My
comment.
question for you guys is, with the bags idea, if the barge was in a place where it was too far away, can you put a bag on a truck and load it directly into the bag on the truck?
Pretty small bag.
It'd be small. You'd be real limited on quantity, and even more, what would be more of a problem would just be the production time. So the bag can fill up so quick, you'll be constantly changing bags and trucks, and you put the bag in the truck, and then you gotta let it, you really wanna let it sit 8 to 12 weeks.
And then Mark, didn't you also say once the bags are full, they're not really designed to be moved?
Right.
They don't have any, they don't have the strength to actually pick up like a garbage bag. They just break right through.
And they do the bags, there are bags sized to fit in roll-off boxes, but again, so the roll-off box is your structure, and they'll de-water just fine. But you still, your quantity, you're talking.
Yeah, and they're more designed for handheld pumps that a guy gets down in the water and cleans out a little silt basin. You know, that's really more what those are. In 10 minutes, you'd have that thing filled over. So.
Well, one last point, Bob, just to follow up on your point, I looked at that area that you mentioned, and it's about twice the size of Possum Trot. So you might be able to get 25 years of sediment in that area.
And it's all upland.
And nobody uses it.
It's not wetland anymore, it's upland.
Okay, I think I've gotten lots of my questions answered. You guys have been gracious with your time.
I just
know
have
you.
one more, if I
Okay.
could.
Oh, sorry,
Who
Mike.
manufactures the barge that the pump, et cetera, sits on?
What's
Is it Crisafulli, or is that?
They're one manufacturer. This is it's Dino 6 is what it's called. If
Okay.
you look that up, you'll find those guys. It's,
Is it like a Rhodomite, or is it? Well, I was looking at the Crisafulli website, and they've got several different types of hydraulic pumps on barge boats, just like that. I was wondering if that was a manufacturer.
Yeah, they are a manufacturer, but that's not who manufactures this.
Okay.
And that's really one that's on a little bit different scale. You start getting into some really high dollars on it. Their smallest one might be okay, but that's what's nice about this one, is it's small enough still that individuals can deal with it. You can afford to invest in it if that's what you ultimately do.
Well, I know the one picture that went around kind of showed the barge on a trailer. That's actually how we pull it. That really shows the size of it. That's how we actually load the barge.
Thank you, Madam. I'm finished.
And the question came from the board about noise. Take a look at that picture. We didn't disturb them guys' golf games on the green. I mean, that was.
We did that, but it was only one time that they made us shut down. That's when Peyton Manning was coming through.
You have to set up those drag lines down it for it to
So
run
we're getting
along.
a quote for buying.
Yeah, the way we drive the bar, the
No, are we
thread
getting
is we
one
set a
before next
cable at
meeting?
each end of the channel
We can
and then
certainly
put
do that.
a guide cable and it actually drives itself on that cable, so it goes down. So we're not just wandering around hoping we get it. We'll make a 2 foot to 5 foot cut and just overlap the cut.
All righty. Oh, Vince? One
What
more.
size pipe is that?
6 inches.
Okay. Well, we sure appreciate your time. I know you would love to stay for the rest of the meeting, but you're welcome to do so. But thank you for taking the time to drive down and,
Really, yeah.
We left a few brochures up here. If anybody's got any questions, I'll leave some of my business cards up there. Feel free to give us a call. We'll be happy to answer your questions or come back down and take a look at the building.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
thank you. Drive safely.
Excuse me, just as a comment, as a new lake property owner, this is very exciting conversation, because as Pam will attest to, as we're her neighbor, these bay is no longer these bay, it's these channels. And we can't get to the main body of the lake in a very shallow boat that we have any longer. So anything that can be done along this line, we're all in favor of. That bay is filling in quickly, and when that bay gets done filling in, that sediment's gonna go out to the main body.
Thanks, Michael. Okay.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Thanks again.
Thank you.
Along the contractors, we received 3 quotes, and 2 of them were for hydraulic dredging, 1 of them was for mechanical dredging. The other hydraulic dredging was from Industrial Environmental. This came back at $127,500, but their cubic yard estimate was only like $3,500. It was a lot lower, so it's near the cost of this for the 3 inner channels. But they were estimating 4,800 yards removed. The third quote that we have was for mechanical dredging, SRS. They came back at $16.08 per cubic yard for mechanical dredging, and their plan is to truck it around to the Possum Trot site.
Adam, I had a question on that SRS, the mechanical dredging. As it reads to me, it's 3,000 cubic yards for $53,600. And I don't understand what that 3,000 means. Once upon a time, we estimated Walker alone was 3,200. Can you give me some harder numbers on what that?
I did not believe Walker would be 3,200. I think it was not much over 2,000 if we did a
That's
20-foot
out
wide
to
channel.
where they dug to Louis Bowser's, around the corner. That was,
What was the number? It was 2,500 or something like that?
it was around 32 is what you had. I had around
You had around
3,000.
25.
Yeah, when I was looking at it, if we just a distance, 20-foot wide channel, and 5-foot deep, I was having about 25.
It was a conservative number because we weren't allowing for where there was water, but it's not much.
That was based on when they came before, they were estimating 3,000 cubic yards. But so if we want more than that, I mean, the price will either stay the same or go down, depending on if we utilize them.
What was the price for 53? What'd you say?
3,000 cubic yards for
$53,600.
$16.08 a cubic yard.
Right, so it's gonna be more than that.
Right. Because what you're talking about, I'm just trying to make sure we're comparing the same things, apples to apples, and I think we're confusing. I know you're confusing me. So what do we get for that money? And if we want more, it's not gonna go down, it's gonna go up.
Well, the cost per cubic yard would either go down or remain the same. The total cost
Okay,
is.
but the total cost is
Yeah.
53 isn't reflective of what we need in the Chitwood area.
No, for all the
his
estimates. I was estimating a little over 7,000
Okay,
if we were to do
that's what
all
I'm
the
getting
inner
at.
channels.
So we're into 100K again.
1786, not 16.8.
Does that make sense?
Divide 1786 by 3,000.
Did you take off the mobilization?
Isn't that all, I mean, don't you have to add all, don't you keep all those costs included? Isn't that part of?
No, it'd be separate. So
Yeah,
subtract
that.
5,360 from 53,000.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
what, I thought we've already been down this road. I know you wasn't here, Adam, but some of you board members was on this board when Dennis did a petition to stop contract dredging. Marty threw a fit, came in. I don't understand where we're back to this again. What's going on?
I think on a small barge operating cost, we're gonna at least double our cost per cubic yard. Currently, we're at 5 with the big guy, so I'm saying probably $10 to $12 a cubic yard. You gotta figure the distance for traveling is the same for the barge. We're only taking a 1/6 of the size of the scoop, and we're only holding a 1/3 of the size of the material, about say 20 to or 30,000 or 30 cubic yards versus 100 cubic yards per trip. So we're going to at least double the cost going to the small barge. So if we're already digging in the $10 to $12,000 or $10 to $12 per cubic yard range, maybe more with the cost of the gasoline. If we're going to dig about that same and we can pay that just to have it done, it's not a bad idea to look into just to having it done once instead of paying for the equipment and then paying that same amount to dig it out afterwards. I think it's worth looking into. I'd like to either get the barge going or decide on this year. That way it can be done next year. But if we're going to be digging about the same amount of cost, then why not look into it?
But again, you're talking about just one area. And trust me, I know it's a bad area. I see it every day. But yes, there is other places, and there are other people that will benefit from this.
Yeah, I honestly don't think we'll use the small barge that much. We've talked about private dredging. We budget 100 hours for private dredging throughout the year. So even to say we dig out Chitwood and we get 1 or 2 channels done a year. Well, then we have to, if we go back and do private dredging, that can be a couple years out. Our private dredging list right now is about 2 years out. So I don't think the little barge is going to be used that often during the season. I honestly don't.
No, I mean,
most of the other areas, if you can fit the big barge, why would you not use the big barge?
Okay, thank you for saying that. Go into the BYC Cove and look at those banks. Now, Dennis, again, said, I didn't want that dug, but it got dug. Go put some riprap on that bank. It is chiseled straight down. You can't secure the bank because they barely fit it in there. Yes, you can fit that big barge in some of these channels, Cove's fingers, but then you're not going to secure it because it's straight down.
Why would you want to pay $250,000 to purchase a barge so that we can then remove material at a higher rate per cubic yard than we can have someone come in and do it for?
Because when you're done, you own the equipment.
You can't do it cheaper.
That is now worth less than what you paid for it. Equipment depreciates.
You cannot do it cheaper.
I know.
Marty, you always want to stand up.
Whoop, one at a time.
Yeah, hang on. Marty, you always want to say, hey, we found out we can do this cheaper in-house.
The thing that I think has changed is this hydraulic dredge really is new technology. This wasn't available 15 years ago when we started this process.
You said this
the cost
3
of the
years ago.
disposal. Well, I wasn't on the board when you keep saying I complained.
You came in here.
I didn't even start coming back to the board meeting.
I'll let you finish.
But,
Go ahead and speak your piece.
Well, my piece is that, you know, that big barge has 3 benefits. It removes sediment, debris, it ripraps, and it can get to every place on the lake except for the Chitwood channels and whatever other channels.
No!
I'm not going to take up that argument. Let's say there's whatever number of channels you can't get to with the big barge. The thing that I like about the hydraulic concept is that if we tried it for Chitwood under a contract and it worked great, there's a lot of advantages to using it in conjunction with the big barge for the main body of the lake on the east end. We'll never be able to use hydraulic dredging on the west end or the middle part of the lake, but if we can get 50% more cubic yards per day hydraulic dredging and less disposal site cost and less disruption to current uses, there's a lot of advantages to the hydraulic. The permits might be easier. Again, I don't think it replaces the big barge, but as far as a long-term supplement, if we're going to be looking at spending roughly the same amount of money on the hydraulic, either by contract or by purchasing it, and we could utilize that for the whole east end, you know, it'll never take out stumps, so we'll still have to use the big boy to take out the stumps. But I see the hydraulic dredge as maybe a panacea to really possibly save this lake.
Where are you getting 50% more? Where are you getting that number?
Well, I haven't done a detailed estimate of all the numbers, but my overriding principle is that this technology with this bag is a new thing, relatively new. Certainly wasn't around when we were looking at hydraulic dredging. And the problem with Lake Lemon hydraulic dredging is, one, the lake's 3 miles long, and we'll never be able to put a pipe in that's 3 miles long. It'd take too many booster pumps, it'd take forever. But to do the main part of the sediment at the east end, if we could do 50% more per day, have less disposal cost, I think the city would love these bags because there's not as much mess and noise at the disposal site. We had a lot of complaints at Possum Trot with the noise, getting that thing ready. Well, you're talking about cutting trees. Once you cut the trees down and take out the stumps, your disposal site's ready to go. And so the thing that intrigues me about Chitwood is it gives us an opportunity to contract it out, check the technology, see if it would work, and then purchase the equipment. Chitwood gets dredged out, and now we have a potential for a whole new technology that could really open up dredging, because we're not going to save this lake at $100,000 a year, not with the current technology.
All right, now you've said your piece.
Okay.
All right, you do realize 5 years ago you said we needed a small barge. We bought the big barge, and that was piece one of what we needed.
Right.
And we needed a small barge.
Right.
You then said private dredging or private contracting would cost way too much, we have to do it in-house. These are your words. You do realize that a year and a half ago you came into a DSG meeting and gave us a 10-page report on doing dry land, or when the drawdown is, we're going to buy equipment and we're going to dig it that way.
Right.
And now you will say, no, we're going to do this. Do you realize you have went this way, this way, this way, this way, and nothing has ever been done when you come up with these great ideas?
Well, actually,
Bob even said in a public meeting, you have 9 ideas out of 10 that ain't worth 2 cents.
Guys,
Well, I have to tell you this,
guys.
the reason you guys got out to the lake this year is because about 3 of us got this thing going.
Okay,
So-
you know what, I want to be
honest.
fair, and I want to go to talking about the small barge, because that's the other half of this.
Right.
You've gathered
And-
information.
I just,
Discuss.
we need, you guys, we need to have the dredging committee with, given all this information with the correct amount of detail. How much are these bags gonna cost us? Are we gonna be able to let City of Bloomington, are they gonna allow us to use the Little Africa area the way we want to if we use this? We need all this information. You guys on the committee need all this information so you can give us a recommendation. All we can do is give you the information, and then you guys have to make a recommendation.
And that takes
I
us
agree
to,
with you,
that takes
too.
to the other side. And Adam, I really think that we've spent enough time on
Yeah.
this piece. Let's go to the other half and talk about the small barge bids or quotes that you've looked into.
All right, for the small barge quotes, we got quotes back from 3 different companies. B&R Construction, J&J Boatworks in Madison, and Madison Boat and Barge. Madison Boat and Barge is Mac Thomas, who built our current dredge. His quote came back at $92,700 for a 20 by 40 by 5 with a sediment hopper, the motors, the whole kit and caboodle, minus the excavator, which we would be providing. So that came back at $92,700. J&J Boatworks in Madison came back at $126,350 for the small barge for everything but the excavator. And then B&R out of Illinois came back at $137,643. So that'll be under the $150,000. So if we do decide to go that way, we can select which company we want to use, and we can work with them for a contract.
And these are all apples to apples to
Apples to apples to apples barges.
Okay.
Yes.
Wonder why Mac's so low?
Because he wants the
Because he
job.
wants the job? Okay. Well, I think that's a good number to have. It's nice that his is the low one because we know his equipment. The barge that's on our lake is built by the man who's giving us the low bid. And we know it works, in somebody else's words. So I'm glad we got that. I think what needs to happen is that we need to reconvene the DSG with these numbers ASAP. And Michael is the new head of the dredging study group. Sorry if I'm using initials that some of you may not know, but Mike, would you agree with that? Because we did not have any of these numbers in our meeting a week and a half ago.
I would agree with that, and I also want to say that for the new people that are here, we only have $100,000 a year in our dredging budget. What this recommendation calls for is $147,000 to subcontract. That's a year and a half of our budget, which means we couldn't even do it in 1 year. And then we wouldn't own any equipment. So we've been very successful in buying the equipment and using it on our lake. And we can sell the big barge right now to Heritage Lake. If we bought the small barge, and I know we will convene the DSG, but if we bought the small barge, the way that these quotes have come in, we could sell that small barge 3, 4, 5, 10 years down the road because we have lakes that are in need of it. So I just wanted to be clear. Yes, we all want the lake to be dredged, whether it's hydraulic but we have been down this road for at least 6 years now.
Y'all have been through a lot more, I understand that. Just a question, if we buy the small barge, are there going to be more dollars, more hours allocated, so you're able?
We have talked about that in the DSG meeting, absolutely. Maybe having 2 crews. I mean, look at the numbers that came in. We're under budget on dredging. We're over on fees, income. So we have the money. But I'm afraid that if we were to subcontract one area, which believe me, they want that area done. They've been wanting it done for years. But there's no balance. They get their area done, we're at $147,000, then what happens to the area that you live in?
You got to do that.
Okay.
We do still have that $100,000 in the account and the 40 some odd for the loan
46,000 a
proceeds.
year on the loan
So
payment.
we do have approximately just under 150 that we could spend without even touching the dredging.
Absolutely.
Next year.
Well, that's information that the committee needs. They need all the financial information and all these.
Acknowledge me, will you?
Yes, Bob, briefly.
Quickly on Juan's comment,
Well, I don't know
without
about the
going,
147.
the proposals on mechanical.
You're out of it.
What? The proposals on the mechanical hydraulic dredging, okay?
Wait, you just said 2 different things. You said mechanical, hydraulic.
Which one?
The mechanical dredging, okay? They just don't add up. You're buying a barge for $93,000 and a Tinka Toy excavator, a 1 cubic yard. Adam tried to explain this. The amount of time it's going to take out to dig out those channels with a quarter cubic yard budget will take forever.
Thank you.
That's the information that
We're gonna take back.
to look.
That's exactly right.
Everybody
Okay.
looks at.
Adam, have you shared all the information that you care to share from your research
Hours,
at
yes.
this point? Okay,
Can I ask a really quick question?
sure,
Do you
Cynthia.
mind? You said you're under budget in dredging. How many, I attended that meeting, and I'm sorry, I don't remember. How many hours are allocated for Levi to dredge, and how many hours have been used so far this year?
It's 600 hours total, and we still have probably close to 150 hours.
Why hasn't that been done?
It was a slow start to the season with the debris and rain. Then our staff are farmers, so for the past couple weeks and for another week or 2, we don't have the staff there to run the equipment. Then now we're looking, I hate to get into it, but we're looking at doing Eidolon next, but the water's still a little low right now. We'd have to redig the access channel that was dug last year if we wanted to do that, and that'd use up all of our hours right there. So if the water's so low right now, I mean, there's no way we can get to the east side of Point Eidolon in the barge without redigging our way in there.
The weather
Are
has
you
not been our friend.
entirely dependent upon the schedule of Levi? I don't understand the relationship, but are you entirely dependent upon when Levi can work?
Just in the fall during harvest season,
Yes.
Yeah.
during harvest season, that's his main livelihood.
But we run out of money generally before we don't have him anymore. And this was a weird season. For your first one, you really, the monsoons and all that debris was
Your
horrible.
fault, obviously.
Well, then let us fix it.
Okay. All right, one more and then we're going to move on.
I just had a question. If the small barge versus versus the hydraulic. If the hydraulic doesn't work, what have we just got $147,000 with nothing to recoup?
Well, it's guaranteed work. It will work.
Yeah, it's a contract.
It's a contract. They have to remove it. I mean, if they get into it and it wasn't working, then they'd have to pull out and try to back out of a contract. But there's so much sediment in there. I mean, I don't see why it wouldn't work. I mean, there's feet upon feet of sediment before you get to hard pan.
Well, I mean, I get that, but I work for General Contracting, and we have people that we do subcontracts to all the time. And yeah, if it doesn't work for that price, it's their problem, but then they just go out of business, and then it's our problem again.
It's a good question.
We wouldn't pay in full before they.
I think there's only a portion down, right? And then
And
We
from what
can
I've
even
heard from
set up
talking to
retainage
people,
if we wanted on the.
I've talked to quite a few different people, even including Shannon, who was looking at building our last barge. He thinks it'd be very hard to sell such a customized small barge. We were able to sell our last one because it was so large it was repurposed as a car transporter. But he said once you get into stuff this small, a couple of different contractors I've talked to said it might be hard to get rid of.
But if we need it, you have to think somebody else might. I hear you, but I think there's two sides to that coin.
I thought that barge size was their #1 seller.
I heard that too. I've read that
It's on the
somewhere. I
website.
can't
It's
remember.
their
It's on the
#1 seller.
website. Thank you. You're right. I read that as well.
Didn't one of the barge builders that you got quotes for, weren't they concerned about that size excavator on there?
Two of them came back actually and said they were concerned with even the 18,000 pound excavator on a 20 by 40 barge, and said the motors when we are empty is going to be very close to being out of the water. He said total deck capacity was about 90,000 pounds, evenly spread out. Then with when you have 20,000 pounds on the front third quarter of it, they said it's going to be close. So we'll have the jack plates, so we'll be able to move the motors about a foot up or down. But even on our big guy, when we're sitting empty, that back end's almost out of the water.
Adam, I didn't see it in the specs. What cubic yard container are we talking about?
It'd be a 30 to 40 cubic yard.
30 to 40, okay.
Yes, Vince.
Adam, where are you going to have your friends? I thought maybe IU, I can't remember which college, but they were
Purdue.
We're going to design the barge.
I talked to them. That really didn't go anywhere. I was talking to their industrial people in the ecology, and they mostly focus on pollution prevention.
So don't we have another avenue for that?
For designing the barge?
Yes.
Well, since we have the quotes, we can just use the barge builders. I mean, they design all their own, so without the bidding process, we select the builder, we just work with them.
You bring up a very good question. If we were to select a barge builder, would they hire a marine engineering company to put the hopper where it's supposed to go and where the excavator is going to go, et cetera?
They have to get a marine engineer to sign off on the barge so we can get the
That's a
material
separate
next
consulting
for it.
fee then?
No, that would be included in there.
That's included in the barge price?
Yeah, in the
But
barge
that wouldn't
price.
that wouldn't be a design for, how everything's gonna be laid out. That would be, they're gonna say, okay, this empty barge is, gonna float, and they'll throw IN numbers on it. That's basically what their marine mechanic.
It doesn't say it'll work. It says
Yeah,
it says it's a vessel.
Well, they're not gonna, I don't think a company's gonna sell a barge that's gonna work.
Yeah, we've gone down this road before as well. Okay, that's enough of that. I'm moving on. Adam, next, we need to talk about the
2016
director's-
Board of Elections update. The postcards will be going out at the 1st of November, soliciting for the districts. They'll be due in early December. And then we'll see who we get. Voting comes at the February meeting, the annual meeting. So those will go out at the beginning of next month. Winter drawdown discussion.
We started this last time, so I think it's kind of everyone was here when we discussed preliminarily the drawdown, and your recommendation after doing a little bit more legwork was 3.5 feet. Is that what I remember correctly?
That was a compromise if people wanted to bring it down some. I don't think there's a huge benefit other than the docking structures potentially. So it'd be a compromise. If we were to go under a contract though, that would happen this winter. We wouldn't be able to draw down, even though it's kind of an aside.
Oh. So if we did the hydraulic dredging, we couldn't lower the lake?
No, not if we started in.
Okay, I just want to.
Right after December.
All right.
Is there some reason to, I'm sorry, is there some reason to start in December since the lake is not being used anyway? Why not just do it in the spring before people start boating?
Normally you want to get it drawn down early so that the lake bed can dry out, so that it can properly freeze. For vegetation control, you always want to, they really would want you to draw it down in the fall and get it real dry.
No, I'm sorry,
and then it can
that's
freeze.
what I'm saying. So why not go ahead and draw it down and have the hydraulics done, should that be the choice?
You can't draw the lake down and then hydraulic.
No, she meant, she's
Well,
saying.
yeah, we could do it early, but
When it
I mean,
fills
we're
back up.
entirely dependent on weather. If we don't get the rain, snow, then,
Yeah.
although it's supposed to be a pretty wet winter.
I see what you mean. Go ahead, do it, and then put that off. Well, and with that, as we make a decision tonight, if it's to be on a drawdown, we may have to revisit it. I mean, as things evolve.
We can always shut it, or not open it.
Yeah,
It's easy enough.
because it could be contingent on what their decision, I mean.
But we have said 3.5 feet, I'd bring it down some, protect some of the docking structures, and then we're not necessarily drawing it as drastically far down.
I'd like to say, if we're going to draw this down, I think we ought to have an official spot where we measure the lake, where it's not just a rebar and a ramp, where anybody could walk out there, like in the maintenance cove, and walk behind the house and look and say, all right, we're either above pool or below pool.
We talked about this a little bit last time. Adam, had you thought any more about that? I think that's a great point.
Yeah, that'd be something we could do, especially during a drawdown. We could install something. I need to look into systems. It'd be nice to actually have something that told you what it was instead of going out and just
Like
eyeballing
digitally?
it. Something digital, yeah.
That would be nice, be less guessing.
It's tricky to put something in the water because you have such a
Right.
big ice movement that, it'll just take any pole or rod you put out there.
You can do like a floating thing where you put it on land and then you do like the US stream gauges where you put a pipe in where you're not right on the lake,
Right.
but it still floats with the water on the lake.
I should look into that. That's probably long overdue.
Yeah.
Do
So it'd
you,
be nice to have
do
water
you-
level, temperature, all that just right off the clock.
anybody else have a thought board-wise on the drawdown, new information that we need to know?
Are you worried much about destabilization of the banks at 3.5 feet, or you feel that would,
Well, I mean, it's still 3.5 feet's gonna,
anything
the
starts
east end
to,
is still where it's not protected.
so any drawdown is gonna start, is gonna make
Yeah,
the
the only
problems we
the only
have.
benefit of a drawdown, and I've looked
Is
through the
docking
numbers, and there
structures.
really doesn't seem to be any correspondence between our level of drawdown and what we spend on vegetation. It just seems to be a crapshoot every year. It's really the biggest reason if we want to protect the dock structures and seawall structures.
One other good point is we're not supposed to draw it down for flood control, but it really does help. We do flood almost every year, so being down 3 feet for that early spring or winter flood, whenever it comes, it does protect a lot of homes and whatnot.
Yes.
But when it is drawn down, we do have erosion,
Yeah.
quite a bit. I mean, you figure you expose 3 feet of mud or 4 feet of mud,
It's
and
gonna
then you put a ton of water on it rushing in, yes, it comes into the lake.
This makes sense. Do we need a vote on this, Adam, tonight, or just a recommendation to revisit if necessary?
Well, we generally don't do the drawdown until December, so we can
Okay,
table it to and make a decision in November if you want.
okay. I'm good
Well,
with
we
that.
table it to November, maybe.
Yeah, November.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right after
Give some
Thanksgiving.
people some notice, because people have been asking, are we drawing it down, are we doing, do they want to do seawall work, so.
Yeah, that was a good point. It would probably be something we should vote on tonight.
Pam,
I'm sorry, yes?
I'd like to comment on that issue. Every year, I hear from many, many people who, after the fact, would have requested to know early so that they can make whatever decisions they need to make informed. By December, for some people who might want to get things out of the lake, it's too late for them to do it with their resources. So the earlier that decision is made and shared with the freeholders, the better.
That's a good point. And we all are also kind of already in a drawdown. I mean,
Yeah, if we
given
do
that-
3 feet, I mean, that's only another foot we gotta take out.
That's a good point. If we wait till November, it doesn't give people good
Yeah,
weather
we
time to
haven't
deal
been
with
hearing about
it.
it, so.
Okay,
Either way.
okay.
I move that we draw the lake down 3.5 feet. this
I
year.
second it.
It's been moved in
What
second.
did?
3.5 feet.
Is the target, how do you feel about that? Are we
living on the lake all winter long, I like the lake to be there, but I appreciate people's perspectives. I'll clean dogs' feet the whole winter. There are people that are compromised when we lower the water. Sonneborn complained because now he won't be able to use his aerator.
Yeah,
He won't have
people
enough
do
water.
that.
So it's a double-edged deal. It was wildly popular on that survey.
Well, I was just gonna say, what did our survey say?
It was,
They wanted
it was one of
that.
the strongest
Okay,
showings.
well, if we're gonna be fair to our
50%.
freeholders,
Yeah,
then
50%.
Yeah, but there was a very poor turnout on the survey, so I don't like to put a lot of stock in that. I mean, it's not like everybody answered.
No, I know that, but we did have more than 50% of the people respond.
50% of 20% of the lake that responded.
No,
Or
no,
was
no,
it
no, no,
20%
no,
or
no, it was
50%?
50% of the freeholders that responded.
So 25% of people want the drawdown. If only
Yeah, I see
50%
what
of
you're
the
saying, I
people.
see what you're saying, yeah.
Yes, yes, Bob.
Did I not just hear a few minutes ago that you guys could actually possibly by the November meeting make a decision on hydraulic dredging and mechanical dredging, and that if it's going to be hydraulic dredging, they want water this winter to start?
You did hear that?
We could vote on this, and then
We can
if the
revisit it.
recommendation comes in from them, that we're gonna do
That's a
hydro.
notice out. You gotta let people know.
I think.
I think actually at this point, I think there's no disadvantage for not lowering the lake. It's okay. The guys that still have boats out there, they can't get off, and get a little rain, they get off their boat, they get off their dock, and just delay the vote until you make a decision next month what you're gonna do. Because if you could actually get started digging up in Chitwood in late November, December, good for Chitwood, that's great.
We aren't going to delay the vote. I
It's
think
been
we'll vote.
motioned and
It's been
seconded,
motioned and
so-
seconded that we're going to vote now. If we have to revisit it, we will. Let's go
Okay.
back. It's been moved and seconded that we lower the lake 3.5
I have
feet.
one more comment. John, did you have a foot that you were thinking of a compromise, or did you have
I'd like a schedule, perhaps years in advance, that indicates the drawdowns. So that we always bring up people getting their seawalls repaired. I have never seen anybody get their seawall repaired during drawdown, but it makes a good soundbite.
Oh, somebody did in our neighborhood,
Okay.
yeah.
I think if Lance was here, he would disagree.
And that's fine. I'm not on the lake when it's drawn down, so I guess I shouldn't say it. But if we could go to every other year, so that people could schedule their seawall work in a timely way, or every third year.
We could put that on the agenda for next meeting, but why don't we accomplish this year?
Well, I'd like the announcement
Right.
that goes out to include that idea.
Should we vote on drawdown in the spring?
It's almost impossible to draw down in the spring.
No,
Are you
no,
not
no,
talking-
plan ahead.
That we vote on it.
Maybe
If you're gonna have-
now, and then we can vote on it in the spring and do it.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's not a bad
That
idea.
seems like a
just
good
stagger
idea.
years.
Okay.
That gives people plenty of notice.
Are you okay with that?
Yeah, I'm okay.
Okay, it has been moved and seconded that we attempt a 3.5-foot drawdown this winter. James will advise us of the start date at the November meeting. If things change, we'll revisit it. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Carried.
All right, James, we'll do the
right.
final
Oh,
vegetation
okay, let's
report.
I've got a summary on the vegetation reports on the back of your agenda, if you guys have them, or in the work packet. We treated it 3 times this year. We were started a little late due to all the flooding and debris. Just the turbidity in the water really slowed things down, slowed the growth down. So overall, it was a really good year. I was a little tight on the vegetation treatment, as a lot of you found out, but I think it really benefited pretty well. We spent $33,516 for the year, and we did get $5,000 from DNR Lair, so we totaled $28,516 and 10 cents with $50,000 budgeted. So we saved a good chunk of change there within the budget. Any questions about treatments this year or next year?
I'd like to thank Adam for sending out your opinion on the Lotus, just the widespread use of the herbicide you didn't agree with, and I thought that was well written.
Thank you.
Comments for next year?
Sure.
I want to revisit the maintenance line.
Maintenance line, yeah.
Okay, at Solomon Harbor.
Okay.
So.
We'll certainly do that.
Okay.
There's a lot of submerged stuff in my little cove.
I do understand the email that Adam sent that it does keep the sediment from moving, but if we're going to change a maintenance line, then let's get everybody involved.
Sure.
Okay. So, all right, thank
And it
you.
doesn't have to be straight across, and we can cater to the specific areas a little more too.
I took pictures today, and Gentry's have Lotus all over their dock. They've never
The problem with that is it's almost like land right there.
Well-
Because when we dug that out, it's so shallow that, I mean, you
Yeah,
know, it's.
we'll revisit it,
land.
but, you know, we certainly, and then it's coming in Solomon Harbor. It's never come in the way it's coming in now, so.
Okay.
Any comments, Solomon Harbor residents? Okay.
Yes, Susan?
Before we leave the manager's report, I didn't see it on here, but I'd like to have the report about how the cleanup day went.
Oh, and I was just going to remind Adam of that because he wants to talk about the next one as well. So the volunteer day.
So I'd like to schedule one next year for the beginning of May before the park opens up, and we'll set a date way out in advance so we can get a lot of people. It was a really crappy day out otherwise. It was cold and rainy. Sue and her husband, her friend, showed up, and they helped do some of the invasive species removal. We had Andy brought a skid steer, an excavator, and a brush hog, and his entire family. And we brush hogged a lot of areas in the park. We reclaimed, I don't know, a couple acres that were just all small shrubs, trees, greenbrier. We used the excavator. We opened up that mosquito pond underneath where that bridge is at, so that all flowed out. And I might look into, at some point, maybe during the winter, maybe digging that a little bit deeper just from land, if we have the hours to do it. Just make a nice little fishing pond there. We cleared out a ton of trees around there, a bunch of small trees around the pond, around that bridge area. I graded that back out, so it's a nice little area between the point now and the park, and it's really opened. The shelter house, we had this nice floor cleaner. We cleaned the whole floor, sprayed everything down the inside of the shelter house. It looks pretty nice. We are going to be installing some fans. I guess that's not on there. I'm getting ready to order some fans for the bathhouse. So this fall, actually Andy and then a person on the North Shore is going to, Lucas, what's his last name? Lieberman. He's an electrician, has low gap electricity. We're going to install exhaust fans in both bathrooms, which I think that's going to be huge, just so we don't have that stagnant air above the holding tank. So that'll be done here in the next month or so. But so we knocked out a lot of work.
2 dead trees we took down, the stump from the other tree that came down, and then the stump behind the bathrooms with all the sticker bushes, all that's cleared out.
You might want to look at that
regraded the
roof.
road coming in and covered that water line that's exposed that leads to the park.
You might want to look at the roof before you put the fans on.
But we were actually thinking, we've talked about that.
Yeah.
And the structure of the building itself is fine. The floor is fine. Just the roof is bad. And we're looking at next year. I think we may know some people that could put in some labor for pretty cheap, if not free, and we can buy the materials. We're thinking about just tearing off the roof and doing a metal roof, having it raised up, just slant from front to back, and a little overhang over the front. That way it'd be well ventilated, and the rest of the structure is fine. I mean, it's just a brick building. So essentially we could just tear off that roof, do a cheap metal
Strip
roof.
it to the brick, single pitch,
Yeah.
galvanum with trusses.
I don't know if the floor is fine. The floor, it's, I mean, there's.
Yeah, it's just sitting on there. That tile is
Yeah.
just.
Well, the tile we could tear up. I mean, the cement base is
That's
still
more
fine, but
cosmetic
yeah.
than.
I'd tear the tile up and epoxy the floor.
Oh, yeah.
I think a new roof, and then if we epoxy that floor, I mean, it'd look like a new bathhouse. The rest of the structure is very stable.
On structures that need attention to, the small shelter house on the old RV point we were looking at, it's almost liability. Cute little structure, I'd love to save it. I think it's too far gone. I think it's something we need to look at maybe next year, having replaced if we want to.
We will look at it.
Yeah.
All right.
Bob's got a
Yes, Bob.
And they put up a really nice rope barricade at Ann Reese's
Oh, yeah.
bench.
You mentioned that last
Happy
time.
about that.
Yep. Oh,
Oh, we
good.
already said that?
No, he
No,
asked
I
about it
didn't
last
say
time,
that.
so good follow-up.
Yeah,
Yep,
so
good.
it's a really
So nobody's
nice
gonna
job.
fall. Good.
And we got wooden posts and they're kind of decorative tops.
Good
We got a
work.
nice thick rope so it kind of fits in, looks a little scenic and
Good work.
so I don't know, maybe
It's gonna
30,
happen.
35 foot of rope along the edge there and then cuts up.
Okay,
So
terrific.
you're not gonna fall off anymore, Marty.
Well, great. Now I'll
Yeah.
trip over it.
Clear. Don't go in the dark.
No, I appreciate you guys following up on that because, I've got grandchildren that would just fall right over that because you don't see the, you're kind of coming down the slope.
Yeah, can't have that. All right, we are at public comment, and I happen to know the young lady in the back has a little information that you guys will be interested in. Susan?
Yeah, if you don't mind, I'm going to stay seated. I can enjoy my hip and
We probably should.
Sorry.
complicated. About 2 years ago, the board, and actually discussions before that, but the dredging committee came up with the concept of a foundation that might complement the work of the board. Now, that's a lot more complicated than you might think. And so for the board, I've actually sent you sort of a cover letter and a background information on a potential of, it's called a 501c3, which is a tax entity. It's technically a charity, not a foundation, but those distinctions are not important for our discussion. I have to thank Tina Peterson, who is the director of the Bloomington Monroe County Foundation, which is a Lilly funded entity, and it takes hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars actually from the community and the county. And that is a foundation that sits right here in Monroe County. There's a similar one in Brown County. And they operate on similar levels. The question has been throughout all of this, since Lake Lemon Conservancy District is a quasi-governmental body, was Lake Lemon Conservancy District eligible for use of putting funds into these community foundations, or can it be itself a 501c3? Well, the answer is no, it can't be a 501c3 unless it would incorporate, and the Lake Lemon Conservancy District is an entity of the state government through the Conservancy Act. So those two things don't mix. What's interesting is Tina has finally run this through a variety of attorneys at the state level, several state agencies, and several not-for-profit boards, and has come back with a decision that I want to share with you. Yes, Lake Lemon Conservancy District could, in fact, create funds that could be housed at the Bloomington Monroe County Foundation, and that is a 501c3 entity, and those funds can then be kept and maintained and used. There are some caveats that you need to be aware of. Those funds have to be established for and specific to the greater good of the public. They may not be for the benefit of freeholders or to the board itself. It has to be the greater good, and she emphasized the greater good of a greater proportion. So no, you would not be taking money in that you would use to dredge. So make that clear. You're not going to bring in money that we would turn around and dredge with. Money could come in that could be used to pay for things like watershed improvement or water quality. Now, there's funds there are two distinct funds, and I'm going to use non-technical terms. One you can spend all the money and one you can't. You know the word endowment, and that's a $20,000 startup funding. You have to have $20,000 to even start the fund, and then you can only spend what it earns. And they manage those things. There is a fee. The fee is nominal. It's a very affordable process because it's very hard to invest and manage funds on your own. That's why the foundations are here, to help small entities like this to make money. The spend down money is you can put the money in and spend all the money out. Like you could put in money that could only go for like the fireworks, and it would be, people could use it as a tax write-off, which is a huge benefit. People tend to give more money if they can get a tax deduction. So yes, those funds can be there, but with that comes the oversight of the board, the added time, the added attention, and you actually are working with their board. That board determines whether or not you get the money that you want and whether or not it's the greater good. So the good news is funds could be established and maintained. A little bit of work on the board's behalf. You'd have to have somebody who would be the point person, and that's, another job. So it's a question of whether or not you want to do that. We've established the funds, and then those funds can only be used for that greater good concept once they come in. So anybody can give the money, the foundation manages it and makes money on it and holds it for you and provides for that tax deduction. So that's what the foundation can do, and that's what Lake Lemon Conservancy District is eligible for. On the other hand, they are not in a position to manage and support the requirements of the matching funds issue to obtain the money, such as from IDEM. We had a presentation a couple of meetings ago, or the last one. So there are monies out there the lake could get, but we have to partner with a 501c3. And there are things like Sycamore Land Trust. They're not going to be necessarily interested in helping Lake Lemon to do these kind of things. So the concept is, yes, there could be, I'm calling it the Friends of Lake Lemon, for no better word at the moment. We can't establish that. It's not we, you. It is we, the public, a group, and I'm willing to work with that group, and I've done some groundwork on that process and have an attorney who will spin that and make that happen. We need to have people who are interested in serving on a small group of decision-making board, an establishing board, and about $3,000 to start that up. That could happen before the end of the year if we had those pieces in place. People could donate by the end of the year, and those funds would then be available based on that 501c3, the Friends of Lake Lemon's decisions. But as I was looking at it, the IDEM monies, the deadlines are early in the spring. If that entity was in place, Lake Lemon would qualify then to have an entity that could match, that could be the entity that those monies would flow through. So it's basically, yes, you can establish the funds. The foundation cannot do the grant work. They're just not in a position to do that. Brown County is not either. Okay. There may be other entities out there. I've not researched every possible organization that might. That was not something that I was really interested in doing, but I have done some research that we could create a partner entity that would resolve those problems and allow us to have a 501c3 to complement what Lake Lemon Conservancy District would want to do. So,
didn't you originally have at least Lance working with you, and did you have another
Lance
person?
and Kim, initially we had the discussions. Things got buried with the foundation because the person working on this retired and left. Tina felt bad about that, so she's been working very hard over the last year to try to get the answers, and she just got them. She called me last month and laid it all out.
We appreciate the info. Is the next step then for you to maybe try to reconvene with Lance and bounce, he being our treasurer, or there really isn't?
You now know that
That's
if you
it?
want to pursue it, you can pursue it.
I think we need an
If
executive board.
the rest of the people in the room would want to work to start up a 501c3, it's nothing you do, it doesn't need your permission. Anybody can do
Right, I
that if
understand
they
that,
want.
okay.
And I'm willing to work with a group if they want to, with the intention of working with.
And what was the initial cost on that?
We need about $3,000 to pay
$3,000.
the attorney fees and the required fees for the federal and state.
We need to have that on our website.
It's not a whole lot of money to get it
as
started.
like a presentation kind of thing.
Would the foundation work with Conservancy in putting together some kind of ad campaign to raise money from the freeholders here to donate to the foundation? And could people leave legacies to the foundation?
Yes, and in fact, some of the things that it's not a foundation. Use that term in quotes, because that has a different legal connotation than a charity organization. But it's like, think of it as Sycamore Land Trust, a place where we could actually hold properties in not in perpetuity. We can take, if you're going to retire and have your long-term benefits, you can give them to WFIU or you can give them to us. The Conservancy Board would not be taking any action, but say a grant would come in and Adam would say, hey, can you help us with this? That my intent of going forward with it would be to be that entity that would allow the Conservancy District to get those grants. To have the qualifying understructure of a 501c3 to work with that entity out there so that those monies come to the lake.
So, you're
Doesn't
right,
require board action.
Right, so,
But-
so as a part of that Monroe County Foundation, if Dave Hobson dies and wants to leave his $1 million estate
Absolutely.
to the lake, it goes to the foundation.
It
It
does.
doesn't go to us, and then
Right.
they would sort of allocate some of that to us or all of that to us.
And as that acting board, and that board would have its own set of bylaws and
Okay.
articles of
Got it.
incorporation that are with annual reports to the state, like any such entity would be required.
Got it.
And absolutely, there would be, I have 3 wonderful fund development ideas. One is a lake home tour. Who would that be? By boating. So yeah, it's a lot of energy, it's a lot of excitement. It's simple to do. If we have a few key people and about $3,000, we can get it started.
So you need some people to step up and volunteer.
Yes.
That's the next.
Of greater good things that this.
I can,
we
in fact, and I have right here a list. I can read some. The board members actually all got an email from me with some of these listed. But some of the things that we have on here is coordinate eligibility for grants, collaborate with the other entities like Bean Blossom Bottoms for watershed improvement programs, fund the annual fireworks. Again, people can give more money if they get a tax deduction. That's a great thing. Fund or co-sponsor grants for research on the lake, for targeted research that we can't afford to pay for. Accept planned giving donations. Thank you for that, Bob. Hold private lands. Have educational workshops that for freeholders and the general public. Take in monies that could be used to rebuild the shelter house.
Right.
And build other infrastructure that would allow then the Conservancy to get greater use of the parks area. We've got people that are rowing, maybe improve the boat ramp area, maybe improve the fisheries. So there's unlimited opportunities, but they can't be to do things which are going to directly and only be for the. There's a line there. It's kind of like pornography. You can't really identify it, but you kind of know when you see it. And if the Conservancy District were to establish funds, they are totally at where the existing foundation of Bloomington, Monroe County, or Brown County, where their boards would agree whether or not those are matching ideals and missions. So.
Well, Susan, thank you for your efforts on this. I'd like to see this take off. Thanks for your efforts.
If anybody's interested or willing to work on something,
we know where to
like
find
that,
you. Okay, thank you very much.
We need to have that information on our website, so.
I would.
How many board members are you looking for?
I would love to volunteer on this.
You can talk to
I
Susan,
only
that'd be
want
great.
1 or 2, and I'm going to be really picky about who they are.
Okay, I'll let you worry about
So I'd
that.
like names, if you've
Well,
got
it's
names of
about
people that are
raising money
interested,
for
we'll
us,
talk with
and I
them.
think that's important.
I know.
And
All right.
I'm working with the attorney about making sure we have certain things in place.
Any other public comment before we adjourn?
Yes.
Yes, Ron?
Just so I know what's coming up. You're planning a DSG meeting before the next November meeting.
Yes.
And you are going to have on the agenda to move forward with the purchase of this.
He's asking you.
Oh, I thought you were asking Mike.
We're going to have a DSG meeting.
Yes.
And then they're going to present those facts to you, and you are going to have on the November agenda to vote and move forward with.
Subcontract or small barge?
Yeah.
And I'd like to have the DSG pretty early, that way
Right.
we can get moving on with contracts and have a contract with enough
guys gotta
time for
make a
people to
decision.
review and look at it.
And a recommendation.
Lance said it was very important to move forward with this year. We have 2
Correct.
meetings left.
Correct.
So is that your plan to November meeting,
I would-
take the DSG's advice, you're on the DSG too?
Yeah, we would come back with a recommendation after we have sat down as a DSG with these numbers that didn't all come in till today. And then make a recommendation. Now, in order for us to move at the next meeting, Ron, we are going to have to get Adam to pursue a contract, or contracts, I guess, is at this point, since we seem a little bit divided on what way to go. He's got to have contracts ready to sign, to be voted on at the November meeting.
Okay,
So
so
is
you
that-
need how long for those contracts?
I mean, if we had a DSG meeting, not this week, but maybe like the next weekend, then
Will that give you
Talk
Halloween
that,
weekend?
And then that'd give me enough time to.
I can't do this 2 weeks.
Okay, we'll work on that later, but I think as soon as it's humanly possible, that DSG
Yeah.
meeting needs to happen.
I don't need long for the contract. I mean,
So that's
week
my
and a half,
thought.
I
Does that make sense to you?
I just want to make sure that
Yeah.
it is in the works,
Okay.
November meeting.
Absolutely.
All right.
With that,
You got
the
that in
last
minutes.
DSG meeting, we did have 4 board members show up.
Yes, we did.
We established a special meeting.
Special circumstance, I think. is
There
probably-
was no voting, there was no discussion, and nothing was approved. We had a 4th board member show up. When that 4th board member left, we adjourned the meeting.
Correct.
Just so everyone is aware that there
Correct.
was nothing underhanded or anything
No.
like that.
And any of you would have been welcome.
That needs to be documented.
It is,
was.
it has
It is
been in the
documented.
minutes, it's done.
That's
And
why I'm
and that, you all
mentioning
could
it.
have been a part of that meeting as well. No money was spent.
Well, in that case, where are the DSG meetings and when would they be?
They're at the office.
They're at the office, so.
Okay, got Real Point? Or-
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
And
Okay.
Can I get on an email list so I can find out when that would be?
Yeah, we can't have too many people showing up to the meetings. It's a pretty
Small.
tight office.
Yeah, okay.
But yeah, we can send it out. Absolutely.
Susan,
I know everybody wants to leave, but in hearing the conversations and being very sensitive to these issues for the reasons I spoke about earlier, I don't expect an answer tonight, but I would like to have some research done before the next meeting. There's a lot of email that flies back and forth, and I remember at one time there was a recommendation from legal counsel that all of the board members use a singular server, and I'm not gonna say Hillary as part of this. But I would like to know if those email exchanges between the office and the board members to each other, and the board members to freeholders and others about board business, if that is public information. If that is public information, I'd like to know where it's stored and how I access it as a freeholder. And I think that those are important discussions. If they've not taken place, they need to take place. And I, as a freeholder, want to know. I've heard 5 or 6 conversations tonight that referred to email exchanges that I've never seen or been a part of. And that lacks some transparency. I want to know if it is in fact public information. Where is it kept and how is it kept and how do I access it?
that would be a legal question, and I don't know the
I
answer to
think
that.
we've got some, we had a
We have a-
report from Angela a couple of years ago on that. We'll have to.
Can we dig that
We'll
up?
have to see what
Okay.
she all said in
Do
that
some
follow-up on
research.
that.
I
Yep.
don't expect
Well, I thought
an
we were
answer
getting,
tonight,
we were
but
all
I'd
going to
like
get our
an answer.
.org emails.
We have established lakewomen.org emails.
So we probably should start using those.
Start using those, yep, okay.
Well, do your research. Do
Okay.
We've already,
due diligence and look at
we
it.
have got a legal opinion on it.
All right,
I didn't
folks.
know we had them.
Next board meeting, November 18th, is right back here in the beautiful Benton.
Madam
Senior
Chairman, I've got an
Center.
item from the future
Oh,
agenda.
yep.
Sorry
Go
to
ahead, no,
interject.
that's it.
Very briefly, and it's probably not something you want to do right now, but Asian carp. I just wanted to put that, but I read that article about Lake Monroe. I don't know if anyone saw it, but they said that Lake Monroe is right on the verge of getting Asian
Right.
carp.
Yeah.
And those things are very dangerous. They'll jump on your boat and someone's been killed. So somewhere. So I don't know if it's a risk, but if it's coming to Lake Monroe, we're the next lake over. So maybe this winter, that's something you guys can maybe take a look at.
Actually, one of the COs said that they've spotted some below the dam, being Blossom Creek.
Oh,
If
fantastic.
they come to Lake Lemon, you're gonna all wear helmets when you go out on the boat, because those things will jump right into your boat and they're 20 pounds.
We're getting black vultures
They'll
too.
almost knock you unconscious, I can tell you.
Do they have teeth?
No, but they jump out when you're moving fast and stuff.
Oh,
You're
yeah.
moving
They're
20
just so
miles an
big.
hour and you get hit, some child gets killed somewhere.
That's not good. We also, I'm going to put on for that agenda is the Causeway discussion, Adam, that we just didn't have time for tonight. I was requested to write a letter by the Lewises about the condition and the maintenance of our causeway late in August, and we met with them in September, but we will put that to November because we're pretty full. All right, with that, may I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second? All in favor? All right, thank you for coming. Sitting.